France, fighters and friendship. We'll talk about that in greater detail. A large number of Indians outside the Prime Minister's hotel. We'll get you those images. There you see Prime Minister Narendra Modi being received by the Indian diaspora in Paris. Much more over the course of the next half hour. I'm Gaurav Sawant. As always, let's get started with the headlines on India First. Maharashtra Navnirman Sena Chief Raj Thackeray pumps up the volume on loudspeaker debate, dares Uddhav Thackeray to take action against mosques in violation of the law. The Maharashtra government cracks down on Maharashtra Navnirman Sena workers. Rana couple get bail in the Hanuman Chalisa sedition case, but trouble far from over for the two. BMC teams inspect their residence over alleged illegal construction. Jodhpur remains tense after Eid clashes. Reports say Rajasthan government allegedly ignored an intelligence alert on the 2nd of May about possible unrest. For the first time in 2 years, the Reserve Bank of India hikes repo rate by 40 basis points to 4.40%. Loan EMI set to go up for borrowers. Sensex down by more than 1,000 points. LIC holds the record for fastest 2 million IPO applications. Policy holders and retail portion oversubscribe on day one. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has reached Paris. This is the last stop of his three-day, three-nation tour to Europe, and this is extremely important. This is Prime Minister Narendra Modi now, in a short while from now, interacting with the French President Emmanuel Macron after his re-election. Do keep in mind, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is the first Indian head of government that the French President will be interacting with after being re-elected. What's on the agenda? A lot. Of course, there will be some conversation about Ukraine and the road ahead. There may be some conversation about Rafale marine fighter jets for the Indian Navy, France, and we'll tell you much more about that story over the course of the next half hour. But I quickly want to cut across to India Today's Anjana Om Kashyap, who's joining us live from Paris. And Anjana, tremendous excitement in the diaspora even here. So first it was Berlin, then Copenhagen, and now France. Anjana, bring us the latest.
बहुत अच्छा लगा. मैं जोधपुर से सैन्यू सपेरा. बहुत खुश रहे.
हम लोग बहुत खुश हैं, बहुत उत्साहित हैं कि मोदी जी से वापस तीसरी बार मिलने का मौका मिला, और हम लोग चाहते हैं कि इसी तरीके से फ्रांस और भारत की ये पार्टनरशिप कंटिन्यू रहे.
बहुत खुश हूँ मैं.
मिले आप लोग पीएम जी आए, सब मिले. We love India. We love मोदी जी.
अच्छी तरह से मिले, और हम ये चाहते हैं कि यहाँ पे वोटिंग करने का नहीं है. हम 10.5 साल के थे तब से आए हुए हैं, और यहाँ पे कुछ मोदी जी करे और हम इंडियन लोग वोटिंग कर सके.
आप लोग मिल पाए, देख पाए, कैसा रहा?
बहुत बढ़िया, और हमारे इंडिया से मोदी जी पधारे, बहुत बड़ी बात है.
मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगा. मैं आंध्रा से हूँ, इधर पेरिस में हूँ. उन्हें मिलके आई एम वेरी हैप्पी. आई एम वन ऑफ द स्टूडेंट हु गॉट बेनिफिटेड बिकॉज ऑफ हिज इनिशिएटिव्स एंड हिज कोलैबोरेशन विद फ्रांस. खुश है. आपके लिए कैसा रहा? पूरा ढोल.
हाँ जी, हो जाए तुम. घर घर मोदी, हर हर मोदी, घर घर मोदी, हर हर मोदी, घर घर मोदी, हर हर मोदी. पेरिस में मोदी, यूरोप में मोदी, पेरिस में मोदी, यूरोप में मोदी, पूरे वर्ल्ड में मोदी, और मोदी
मोदी है तो
सारा वारा यही सोच रही है. पहले सोच के आए. नहीं, मोदी जी आए तो हमको इतनी एनर्जी हो गई.
अंदर से निकल आया. अंदर से
बहुत खुशी हुई, क्योंकि पहली बार हमने इधर मोदी जी को ऐसे देखा, क्योंकि हम तो यहाँ पे बड़े हुए. तो फिर बहुत खुशी हुई इधर फ्रांस में वेलकम करने.
यूनिक एक्सपीरियंस है. मैंने भी पहली बार मिला है मोदी जी को, और नजदीक के अलग ही इमोशन है नजदीक से देखने के लिए, लेकिन बहुत अच्छा लगा.
Now this is an extremely crucial partnership or friendship between India and France. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be meeting the French President Emmanuel Macron in just a few minutes from now. The Prime Minister is the first world leader to be hosted by Emmanuel Macron after his re-election. The two leaders will hold a discussion on several issues, including the Ukraine conflict. India, of course, insists that there are no winners in conflict. There must be a peaceful resolution that must be found through dialogue. There's also some conversation about France pitching the Rafale marine fighters for the Indian Navy. We'll get you much more on that story. But first, this report on Prime Minister Narendra Modi's very crucial Europe tour.
Germany, Denmark, France. Prime Minister Modi's whirlwind European tour comes in the middle of a raging war between Russia and Ukraine. India's neutrality has ruffled many feathers in the West, especially the US. PM Modi's visit to Europe has given New Delhi the opportunity to make its stand clear. First in Germany in his meeting with the Chancellor Olaf Scholz, then at the Indo-Nordic Summit. And now in France, where he meets French President Emmanuel Macron. The message is unambiguous. India will not take sides in the war that has sent shockwaves across the globe.
यूक्रेन के संकट के आरंभ से ही हमने तुरंत युद्ध विराम का आह्वान किया और इस बात पर जोर दिया था कि विवाद को सुलझाने के लिए बातचीत ही एकमात्र उपाय है। हमारा मानना है कि इस युद्ध में कोई विजयी पार्टी नहीं होगी, सभी को नुकसान होगा।
If Germany was more accommodative of India's stand, then the US, Denmark urged India to lean on Russia to end the war.
The war in Ukraine reminds us that democracies, that democratic nations like India and Denmark all over the world must stand up for the principles and for the values we believe in.
The Russia-Ukraine war has forced a sudden change in the world order. India is walking the tightrope, but has made it clear time and again it will not give in to arm twisting.
It would remind you that there are equally pressing issues in other parts of the world. I mentioned Afghanistan. I mentioned the challenges which we faced in Asia. And if I were to put those very challenges in terms of principles, I mean, when a rules-based order was under challenge in Asia, the advice we got from Europe is do more trade. At least we're not giving you that advice.
Neutrality is not new to India. India remained non-aligned during the entire Cold War. But times have changed and India has emerged as a stronger and bigger player. And with the emergence of China as a superpower, New Delhi will have to make some tough choices in the time to come. With cameraman Yogendra Singh, Anjana Om Kashyap from Paris for India Today.
And just after he landed in Paris, Prime Minister Narendra Modi said he took to social media platform Twitter to say that France is one of India's strongest partners. He is interacting in these images, as you see, with the president of France, Emmanuel Macron. These, of course, are file images that are coming in. What's high on agenda? Defense, trade deals, and of course the Ukraine war. Prime Minister's visit to France is being seen as the big boost to India-France relationship that's being taken to the next level.
In a few hours from now, the newly re-elected French president will conduct his first in-the-flesh meeting with a world leader. And that leader is Emmanuel Macron's friend, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Modi's arrival in Paris will mark a lightning-quick showstopper to a whirlwind Europe tour. But the air of Paris is thick with substance for one of India's most important relationships in the continent. At the Champs-Élysées, the two leaders will talk extensively about the Ukraine war, with Modi already making clear during this visit India's clear stand.
यूक्रेन के संकट के आरंभ से ही हमने तुरंत युद्ध विराम का आह्वान किया और इस बात पर जोर दिया था कि विवाद को सुलझाने के लिए बातचीत ही एकमात्र उपाय है.
But beyond the deep diplomatic engagement, there's plenty of the tangible on the Indo-French table. The Indian Air Force, remember, has received 35 of 36 French-built Rafale jets and has been operating them extensively from 2 bases in India's north and east. France is now pushing hard for India to sign on for even more Rafale fighters, including a made-in-India version. With the Indian Air Force in the market for 114 new multi-role fighter aircraft and the Indian Navy hunting for 57 new-generation carrier-based fighters, Macron's France believes it is in the best possible position to win both deals, considering the Rafale is already operational in Indian service. Apart from fully built military aircraft, one of the most crucial and substantive Indo-French projects in the offing is a partnership to build a powerful new jet engine to power India's future combat aircraft. The Indian Ministry of Defence is said to have urged its teams to tie up all loose ends and get this project going as quickly as possible. However, things are less hopeful on the submarine side of things, with France, maker of India's Scorpion-class submarines, pulling out of India's projected Project 75I submarine building program, which envisages local construction of 6 new-generation submarines. Ties between India and France go way beyond military trade and cooperation, but as with India's major relationships, defence cooperation is a major sweetener and enabler of bigger things. While Modi's brief stopover in Paris today isn't long enough for deal-making, it is visits like these that clear the proverbial decks for the big deals. Whether those deals happen, especially with France going up against contenders from a powerful United States, remains to be seen. With Anjana Om Kashyap in Paris, Bureau Report, India Today.
And France has upgraded 4 naval versions of the Rafales. These are called the Rafale Marines to the latest standard and is planning to offer them to the Indian Navy to be tested on board INS Vikrant, the aircraft carrier that gets commissioned next year. Now this is intended to give France an edge, an advantage over the United States, which has offered its F-18 Super Hornet fighter jets to India again for the INS Vikrant. Overall requirement of the Indian Navy is 57 fighter jets for its marine fleet. France feels if it quickly offers these 4 jets, these jets have been upgraded with air-to-air missiles with the latest avionics, it will basically perhaps score a victory and have an edge over the American competitor. I quickly want to cut across to India Today's executive editor Shiv Arur for more on the story. Shiv, tell us more about these upgraded Rafale Marines. What kind of upgradation is taking place? What's the new configuration that's been offered to the Indian Navy?
Well, Gaurav, it's going to be very interesting for the Indian Navy because the Indian Navy has been, hunting the global market for many years now for this kind of distant dream of operating at least 57 deck-based fighters. At a time when the Rafale goes head-to-head with the American F-18 Super Hornet, things have obviously hotted up. Over the last few weeks, in fact, the Rafale has been proving its ski jump capabilities for the Indian Navy in Goa. Later this month, the Super Hornet will be coming to Goa for the same thing. But the big prize is that 57 aircraft order. Now, the French obviously believe that since the Indian Air Force already operates the Rafale, therefore the Rafale should be the logical choice for the Indian Navy because it has benefits of commonality and spare parts and maintenance and things like that. But obviously, the Indian government doesn't quite see it that way. They see, all defense deals as separate. They have a huge political component to them. So therefore, this is not so much, in my view, in the Indian Navy's hands. But I think the French are playing a very, smart move. What they're trying to do is upgrade a small handful of Rafales and kind of quickly deliver them to the Indian Navy, for operations of the INS Vikrant aircraft carrier as soon as it enters service next year, as a kind of sweetener, to give the Indian Navy, a close-up access and time on the Rafale with a brand new aircraft carrier, almost like a fait accompli, almost like the Indian Navy, once it tastes these Rafales, will have no choice but to award the entire deal to the French. But I don't know if it will actually go that way.
Okay. 57 aircraft is what the Indian Navy hopes to acquire or wants to acquire. But when it comes to these Rafale Marines with their upgraded avionics and systems on board and air-to-air missiles, how does it compare to the F-18 Super Hornets that the Americans are offering?
Now let's make no mistake, the Rafale and the Super Hornet are both highly capable, 4+ generation fighter aircraft. They've both seen combat. They're both operational off nuclear powered aircraft carriers. They've both fired weapons in anger. So these are battle proven fighter aircraft that we're actually talking about. But even though if you actually compare their capabilities, there are some areas where the Super Hornet vastly trumps the Rafale. There are some areas where the French say that the Rafale is superior to the Super Hornet, whether it is in certain things like weapon carriage capability, the kinds of weapons that can be fired, the modular nature of it, the open source nature of some of the electronics, for the Indian Navy and the Indian Air Force. But all of that might actually not really finally matter, because as you and I know, Gaurav, defense deals and defense procurements in India very rarely come down to the technical capabilities, because when it comes to a comparison of a bunch of aircraft that exceed the kind of expectations and standards that you have, it's ultimately about the political baggage, the political sweetener, the kind of political might that comes behind or in hand with a defense deal. So I think that's where things are going to matter. And let's make no mistake, France and the United States are very big, substantial defense partners to India. So it's a big one, this one.
Shiv, for joining me here on India First. Many thanks. Shiv and I will be tracking the story very closely. Of course, France and the French President Emmanuel Macron, and they've been talking extensively both to Ukraine and to Russia in an attempt to find a solution to the situation in Ukraine. France expects India to play a bigger role. The two heads of government and state will be talking about this. But this war in Europe has actually divided the world. Pope Francis has given his take on this conflict. Pope Francis has actually slammed the North Atlantic Treaty Organization for quote-unquote barking on Russia's door. Ukraine has taken strong objection to Pope Francis's comment and has said that the Pope is actually repeating Russia's point of view. We get you more in this report.
Pope Francis has put the spotlight on North Atlantic Treaty Organization for the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Speaking to an Italian daily, the Pope said, "Barking of NATO at the door of Russia may have led to the invasion of Ukraine." Pope Francis then went on to question the logic of US and other NATO countries providing more military hardware to Ukraine that was resulting in prolonging the conflict. In the interview, the Pope on Russia's stance on Ukraine was quoted saying, "Anger that I don't know whether it was provoked, perhaps facilitated by the presence of NATO in nearby countries." The Pope was quoted in Ukraine, "It was other states that created the conflict." He did not, however, name the countries that he felt created it. Pope Francis has offered to travel to Russia to seek an end to the conflict, but has so far not received any response or window of opportunity from Kremlin.
Such initiatives are sent through the diplomatic services. There are no agreements on meetings and they have not been reached.
He has criticized the brutality of war and warned the Russian Orthodox Church not to become Putin's altar boy. He told Russia's ambassador to Vatican at the start of war to please stop. The US and other NATO countries
continue to provide high-caliber military hardware to Ukraine as the war enters day 70. From S-300 systems to M777 howitzers and armoured personnel carriers, NATO countries are providing weapons and systems to Ukraine. Bureau Report, India Today.
And Ukraine has unleashed its killer drones in the skies. A new video uploaded by Ukraine's interior minister shows a smaller drone being used to target the Russian military. It seems as if Russian troops were in a vehicle, they were going somewhere, and these drones targeted them. And these drones are capable of hitting targets with pinpoint accuracy, as this report tells you.
For over 2 months now, drones have done untold damage in the Russia-Ukraine battlefield. From smashing tanks, to destroying artillery, to even bombing patrol boats on the Black Sea. Drones armed with laser-guided missiles and suicide drones, where the drone itself is the missile, have defined a high-technology battlefield where few targets are beyond reach. And now, a newly revealed chapter of this escalating drone war in Ukraine. What you're about to watch is a piece of footage capturing the use of small drones and applied to cause devastating pinpointed damage. Watch now closely as this drone quietly films from the air as a group of Russian troops mobilize on an unspecified dirt road in Ukraine. Swooping up over them, the drone quietly drops an improvised grenade on the unsuspecting troops, injuring some and sending the rest running. In an eerie moment, the drone stops and zooms in on the injured soldiers. The drone lies in wait and then slowly moves to observe the Russian troops, including one of the injured men, getting into a pickup truck. With the target just sitting there, the drone then deploys a second grenade, sending it straight down through the sunroof of the vehicle. A precision strike smashing into the truck and exploding, sending the vehicle careening, the injuries to the men captured in zoom mode. What you've just witnessed is footage tweeted out by Ukraine's Interior Affairs Minister of what is possibly the lowest cost airstrike in existence. A method that's been used in the past by ISIS in Iraq and Syria, a method that's being tested by US Marines, and now using a definite degree of hardware improvisation deployed to devastating micro effect by Ukraine against Russian troops. What Ukraine has demonstrated is the use of drones across the damage spectrum over 2 months. From the use of drones to distract and then facilitate the sinking of Russia's biggest ship in the Black Sea, to the bombing of fast-moving boats, to devastating tanks and armor, to now even picking out individual groups of troops. The gap for escape is rapidly closing and at nearly no cost. Bureau Report, India Today.
We will continue to track developments on the story, but that is all I have for you on India First this evening. Many thanks for watching.